you know you need, but not a lot of people go over, so we're going to go over it together. There are a few different methods for note taking, and this is one. It is called the outline method, as you can see here. Probably what it's called. And then what you do, and this is kind of what I do when I'm taking my own notes, is you list the main topic. So, like, what is this about? So if you say boy bands, then a subtopic of it would be like a specific one, like the Backstreet Boys. So you would put it right there, just sort of level to the side. And then a thought or supporting fact, just something that about maybe boy bands in general or Backstreet Boys, and you would put it right here. It's just sort of a layering of your thoughts, which I think is really helpful because you need to know what is the most important, and then you need to know what goes into that. There's just some pros and cons. You have this page on your calendar for today, so if you just click it, you can read it as you go along. The second method is the Cornell method. These notes are very organized. You have a title, you have a date. I don't title my notes except for if they're for like a very specific thing or subject. Oftentimes they just go together. So here you'll have you organize by keywords, and then you have key thoughts, you have questions over here. They're just a very organized way of putting down information. We'll do some pros. It's a quick way to take, review, and organize your notes. Summarizes all the information in a systematic manner. Systematic meaning that it's very clear, very organized. You know what you're looking at instead of having to search through notebook after notebook and trying to find what you need. Cons, they need to be prepared, your pages do, before a lecture, because if you start and then you try to draw the lines and make little boxes or whatever, it's going to get confusing. But something like the outline method, the first one, you don't really need that much for pre-planning. The third one is called the boxing method. Doesn't that look nice? Someone put a lot of time in this. Some of the pros of it are it organizes notes in the form of boxes. It lets you focus on one box at a time. I don't think that it would work in general, like if you have a main idea and you're supporting it with those ideas. It almost seems as if they're for separate thoughts entirely instead of interlinking ones. And in English, we are going to be working with interlinking ideas throughout. But I do a version of this, but if something is important when I have notes, I circle it or I star it, and that lets me know that I need to, if I'm studying for a test, I need to go back and I need to look at that specifically. Number 4, the charting method. I've never used this method. It looks way too organized for me, but I do understand it. So you just want to make sure that each idea over here is you give a description, when happened you use that thing, the pros and cons of that issue. This might be good for maybe a subject like social studies, history, maybe even for math. Maybe instead of pros and cons, you put when to use like a formula for a math problem. And those are some pros and cons. And then the last method is the mapping method. And I honestly, sometimes my notes do not look this organized and pretty, but they do sort of follow this thing. It is kind of like the outline method where you have your main idea, you have the what goes into it, you're listing the sort of contributing ideas to the main idea, and then you're describing like what it is, which makes more sense. And then it goes into other things and other things. So all of these things are interconnected, which makes it really easy to go back and study if you are focusing on one major thing and trying to figure out what all goes into that. So the point of this little lecture was to make sure that you take notes during class. I know that we are not seeing each other face to face, but we are seeing each other Zoom calls and PowerPoints. It's easy to look back, but sometimes I find it easier to write everything that I need to know or that I didn't know in like a notebook or a separate place, and then be able to go back to it and just look at that instead of having to filter through 800 different tabs. So I hope this was helpful to you and that you use it in the future.